Paul Antonopoulos, Deputy Editor at Al Masdar News, an online outlet that covers events in the Arab world. Great to have you on the programme, Paul. We're just listening there. Back in 2013, so some 4 years ago, Donald Trump said that attacking Syria without congressional approval is wrong, but that's essentially what occurred last night. What reasons could Donald Trump have for not waiting for that?
I think the longer that this prolongs, the longer that people can make investigations, the quicker that the truth of the matter will come out. Now, originally, opposition forces wanted to say that sarin gas was used. However, within a mere few hours, we're talking about just a few hours here, this was completely debunked. So the white helmets, that are Al-Qaeda affiliated, they themselves published photos of them dealing with bodies without any sort of protective gear. Some people wore masks, but a lot of the times people were just wearing sandals and not even wearing gloves and not even the proper safety attire. Now, when we look at sarin gas, we know just within a couple minutes, it attacks the nervous system, it attacks the muscular system. It makes you release your bowels and your bladder almost immediately. You become very nauseous, you start getting induced vomiting. So they came out with the excuse. They came out with the story that it was sarin gas used. Now we know, as I said, within hours this was completely debunked by the own videos and by the own photos that they produced. So I think as weeks go on, this chemical attack mythology will be 100% debunked. So Donald Trump, if he wanted to be a warmonger and intervene in Syria, he had to do it as soon as possible, even if it was against the Congress or congressional orders. So he had to act in this very quick capacity before the truth of the matter really came out.
Well, indeed, it's taken just a matter of days for President Trump's Syria policy to go from Bashar al-Assad can stay to he must go. I believe we can just take a listen to what was said, Paul, for a moment.
My attitude toward Syria and Assad has changed very much.
With respect to Assad, I mean, there is a political reality that we have to accept.
I think the status and the longer term status of President Assad will be decided by the Syrian people.
Yeah, you had Sean Spicer and Rex Tillerson also speaking there. Why such a sudden U-turn, do you believe?
Look, we know that in his pre-election campaign, he used a lot of this rhetoric that Assad isn't the main enemy, it's ISIS, we must focus on ISIS. However, that's not how the US foreign policy apparatus works. That's not how US imperialism works. It's always, you always got to keep moving forward. You've always got to remove leaders that are against your own ideals within the region. We know that Syria is a very important strategic location between oil-rich areas and the Mediterranean Sea. So, there's a lot of important pipelines that can go through Syria. Now, Syria being a free, sovereign, independent nation obviously doesn't serve US interests and doesn't allow for pipelines that go from rich Arab countries. They don't allow these pipelines to go through Syria and onto Europe and serve their own allies there. So it's only natural that over time that Bashar al-Assad would eventually have to leave as he doesn't serve US interests. On top of that, we also have to look at the geostrategic part of it. So we know that Syria is a staunch ally of Iran, and Iran is probably one of the top enemies of the United States at the moment. So basically the United States wants to break this alliance, and the only way that they can do that is by removing the president. So we always have to dismiss what any president says or whatever US candidate says, because we know what their end game is.
But it is so fresh in the memory, the pledges in the presidential election, isn't it? Two of the things that come to my mind immediately when we thought of Donald Trump in the run-up was bring jobs back to America, and also when it comes to foreign intervention, simply let's not have that. Those were the campaign promises, weren't they? That one particularly, not to engage in any foreign interventions, yet these direct strikes have been ordered against Syria. Your thoughts just on Washington's stance now when it comes to the sovereign state of Syria?
The sovereignty has never been respected. So we look at the Russian intervention in Syria, and it was done accordingly to international law. Every avenue has always been through international law. Now, the United States have continually been intervening. This is a very important point. This is not the first time that the United States has targeted Syrian soldiers. It's not the first time. We just have to look a little bit over 6 months ago when they targeted Syrian army positions just outside of Deir ez-Zor. And effectively what happened immediately after, within 1 hour, ISIS started their attack against Syrian army positions, and the Syrian army had to withdraw quite a bit because of these United States airstrikes. And in the case of Deir ez-Zor, these are airstrikes that went on for over an hour. So for over an hour, they were bombarding Syrian army positions and allowing ISIS to advance. In this case as well, the United States has targeted a Syrian airbase where, you know, Russian soldiers were as well. We know earlier I was on Press TV and I said there were 0 casualties. The latest reports is now that there's 4 confirmed deaths of Syrian pilots. Now, what makes this airbase so significant is that it was actually the main airbase that the Syrian military uses to attack ISIS in the eastern parts of the country, particularly around countryside Homs. So once again, they're either directly or indirectly assisting ISIS by taking out 15 Syrian jets, destroying the airfields, and this airbase was one of the primary air bases to attack the terrorist group. So this is a consistent theme, and it must be emphasized that this is not the first time that the US military has targeted Syrian military positions.
But people waking up will think just that, won't they? That this is the first direct American assault against the Syrian government. Paul, we thank you very much for coming on the programme, helping us make sense of what, as I say, people are waking up to the news this morning. Paul Antonopoulos, Deputy Editor at Al Masdar News, an online outlet that covers events in the Arab world. Thanks, Paul.